you are working for the Lord. You are not working for human masters. Yes, you do have a line manager. Yes, you do have a 2-up. Yes, you do have KPIs. And yes, you do have these, once a year performance reviews that you have to, still do and still have. But with everything that you do, if you work it as if you're working it for the Lord, then you're going to pass those things with flying colors, and you're going to meet your goals and you're going to meet your KPIs, because then it's going to be easy because you're doing it for the Lord, not just for the shine at work. Have you ever felt like the people above you, the ones making those big decisions, don't really have your back? Maybe you're trying to bring positive change, or maybe address a toxic culture or advocate for your team, but you feel blocked, unsupported, or even dismissed by your line manager, or even other line managers, or the main person, the CEO, or the principal in your organization or school. Now, unfortunately, whichever way you want to have a look at it, you're not alone. So many female Christian leaders and middle managers really face this tension. And today we're going to unpack how you can navigate those moments with wisdom, grace, and biblical confidence. So let's jump in. Do you wish that you could lead your team in a way that honors and glorifies God? Are you struggling to overcome self-doubt as a leader and have a desire to be more confident in your role? Welcome to the Women of Faith in Leadership podcast. I'm Rika, and for the last decade, I've experienced my fair share of managing challenging employees and teams in middle management leadership roles. I committed my leadership journey to God, and it changed everything. And I'm ready to share everything I've learned with you. Now, if you're ready to lead your team in a way that honors God, grab that notebook and pen, and don't forget your chai latte, and let's dive in. Before we dive in, as always, I would like to invite you to take my free leadership quiz about confidence. So in this quiz, you're going to learn the number one thing that's holding you back from leading with confidence. And you'll discover this confidence blocker, as I'd like to call it. And after you have discovered your number one biblical or your number one confidence blocker, I'm going to give you a biblical next step to help you move forward. After you have filled out the quiz, I'm going to send you a series of emails on how you can use this number one confidence blocker to your advantage and what you can do to overcome it. So I look forward to you taking the quiz. You can go to womenoffaithinleadership.com/quiz. I've told this story before on the podcast, but when I was working in childcare, I think it was either my first or my second year when I was in Australia. So this would have been either 2014 or 15. I had an unsupportive line manager. So she was extremely unsupportive over something that I wanted to do. It was a personal gain for me, the thing that she was unsupportive of. I mean, I've got many other stories as well of line managers being unsupportive of things that I wanted to implement at work. But in particular, with this situation, my line manager was unsupportive of a decision that I needed her to make my life better, just to support me with having a new baby at home. So yes, this would have been 2015 then, because my middle child was born in 2015. And so I actually emailed my 2-up. So this was the area manager. And I said to her, look, I'm just having to navigate this difficult situation with my line manager, and I'm just seeking some guidance from you on how I need to handle this situation, or, just to try and understand the policies and procedures from a human resource perspective on how we can go about solving this problem. And instead of my line manager supporting me in that space, what she actually did was she forwarded my email that I sent to her in confidence. She forwarded my email to my line manager. She CC'd me back into that email, and she told my line manager to please sort this out. So, cringe worthy. Okay, like when I received and I was CC'd into that email, I was like, oh my word, like what went through your mind to think that this was going to solve the problem? Actually, you've just made the situation worse, because now I have to go and face my line manager. But because she just literally saw the email I sent to you in confidence, and you're telling her to sort this out. What's the whole point of having a 2-up if you're not going to have my back, or if you're not going to support me? And so I had to really decide on how I was going to handle this situation with my area manager, with my 2-up, because I was already facing these issues with my direct line manager. But now I also had a difficult situation with my area manager. So what I did was I said to her, I emailed her back and I said, look, I felt really deflated was the word I used. I felt really deflated when you forwarded my email that I sent you in confidence to my line manager, because I was hoping to get a solution from you and to understand the policies and procedures better in the space so that I could solve this problem. And so she did respond back and she apologized. And I think she must have had a moment of, I can't deal with this right now. This is literally the line manager's issue. She needs to sort this out. But in doing that, it did show me that higher management really didn't have my back, and I was just another number. I was just another person in the company. And like I said, I've got many other stories of how line managers didn't support me on things that I wanted to implement at work. But I thought I would reiterate this example, which I've mentioned before, because if you experience one type of unsupportedness or a feeling of being unsupported, it kind of forms your opinion of what higher management is going to be, going forward. So any other decision that I needed to make, I knew that I could not rely on my line manager or even then my 2-up to support me in a decision, because now I felt like, well, now my line manager thinks I'm out to get her and I went behind her back. But also my area manager didn't actually handle the situation well. So if I go to her again with something else, she's 100% not going to, want to work with me or make something happen or whatever. So it really clouded my judgment in terms of how I then saw work, and any decision that I had to implement, I knew I didn't have their support. So in today's discussion, I really want to talk to you about, how can you go about this moving forward? And look, there were some things I did correct, that I got right in that space. But reflecting on it now, there are some things that I could have done better. And I'm always very honest about the mistakes that I make, because I feel like the Lord took me through those mistakes so that I can share them with you, the listener of Women of Faith in Leadership, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes I did. But also there's so much wisdom that can come from mistakes. And if we can learn from other people's mistakes, then it means that we don't have to make that same mistake as well. And so, being unsupported by higher management can leave you really questioning your own leadership, doubting any decisions that you make, and then obviously feeling isolated and undervalued because of the way that you've been treated. And as a middle manager, you're often caught in the middle. It's the messy middle, as I've heard as well, people talk about the messy middle. And that's the messy middle between the staff and the top-down's expectation. But I want to remind you of a verse in Psalm 118, verse 8, that says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man." And quite often what we do as leaders or as employees, because although you're a leader in that company, you are still an employee to somebody else, right? Because your line manager or your 2-up, you're an employee to them. And what we want to do quite often is we want to people please, because I want my line manager to like me. I want her to think that I'm a good worker. I want her to think that I've got good work ethic or, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. But by doing that, I'm seeking refuge in man and not trusting in the Lord. So let's remember David's words in Psalm, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man." And basically, from a biblical perspective, leadership is stewardship. You are stewarding something there in your team, with your group of employees. And you get to decide. Because you get to actually lead faithfully. You get to lead God's way with integrity and with a pure heart, who knows the biblical truth of, what goes on and the ins and the outs. And again, it's the messy middle, right, between that secular world and the biblical world, or the Christian world that we live in. But I want to just remind you that even if you feel unseen by your line managers, or whomever is that you feel unseen by, I want to remind you that God sees your work. And I want to remind you about a verse in Colossians 3, verse 23, which I have shared on the show before. It's one of my favorites. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. And so when you are in your position, remember that you are working for the Lord. You are not working for human masters. Yes, you do have a line manager. Yes, you do have a 2-up. Yes, you do have KPIs. And yes, you do have these, once a year performance reviews that you have to, still do and still have. But with everything that you do, if you work it as if you're working it for the Lord, then you're going to pass those things with flying colors, and you're going to meet your goals and you're going to meet your KPIs, because then it's going to be easy, because you're doing it for the Lord, not just for the shine at work. And so here's 3 practical strategies that you can follow when I'm talking about, like leading faithfully when higher management isn't on your side. So here's 3 practical tips that I can give you. The first thing is clarify what you can control. And if you have seen these things, there's many of these Venn diagrams that go around like Facebook or LinkedIn that says things I can control, things I can't control, even if it's like 2 circles. There's things you can control, things you can't control. So you need to go and clarify exactly what it is that you can control. Things like, get clear on your responsibilities, your priorities, the things that you need to do for your team. But then you also really do need to get clear on what you can't control. And those are decisions by management. Those are, the vision set by the company, or the goals that the board of directors set for the next year, or, whatever that might look like, and whatever your setup is in the organization or school that you work at. But you do need to get clear on what you can control, because those things that you can control, you're going to do exactly as Colossians 3 verse 23 says. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. So those things that you can control, you are 100% going to control them and work at them for the Lord, not necessarily for your human masters. And again, like I always say, we are working for money. Like, that's the reason why you go to work. So I do expect of you to still do your best. Like, as the host of the show, I am 100% a believer in you should still give your 100% at work. You shouldn't be slacking off. That was a bit harsh, but I do want to say that, like, just because we are looking at or striving towards godly leadership or leading like Jesus does not mean that we get to do less. It actually means that our focus is different. We're still going to work hard. We're still going to have great work ethic, but we're going to do it for the Lord, not necessarily to please our line managers. And so the second thing that you need to think about when it comes to, leading faithfully is building bridges and not walls. Because when we get defensive, or like when you speak to someone and they immediately snap back, or you immediately have an angry reaction when your line manager says something, that's you getting defensive and building walls around you. Whereas I want you to start thinking about it differently. I really want you to start thinking, okay, I need to build a bridge. And what does that bridge look like? So some examples that I can give you in terms of building that bridge is seek to understand your higher management's perspective, even if you disagree. So I had actually many examples, like many opportunities or many experiences is really the word I need to use, where I disagreed with decisions that higher management made, but it was out of my control. It was not things that I could do. And it actually came down to a point where the school had a slogan that said, "Women empower women." And I could see the cracks of that because the practices of what we did not empower women. And it was an all-girls school, and the staff that worked there were male and female. But the slogan of a school was women empowering women. And I just saw that this was totally not true. That's a vision that they had, but the practices was completely and totally not true. Again, why? Because I was involved. I loved being involved in all of the different departments. As a head of department, I was involved with other heads of departments. So, I could clearly see the cracks. And I'm very proud to say that in my exit interview, I said that to the then principal. And it was something that I needed to get off my chest, because I felt like, the organization was a hypocrite. The school was a hypocrite. But again, that's not things that I can control. I cannot control that. It's out of my control. But do I have a voice about it? Can I say something? 100% I can. That's something I can control. But what can't I control? I can't control them changing it. I can't control them, filling those cracks and fixing the problem. That is something I cannot control. So we really need to go and think about it again. That's why I mentioned it in point number 1. What are things that I can control, and what are things that I cannot control? The things that I can control, I'm going to take charge of that, and I'm going to do my utmost best to do it for the Lord. But the things that I can't control, I'm just going to have to let go, and I'm going to have to pray over it, because some things will keep you awake at night. Some things will upset you, but you have to ask the Lord to move on, to help you just to move on. The other thing you can do when it comes to building bridges is you can schedule intentional conversations to clarify expectations from your line managers, to ask questions, and to present solutions rather than just problems. So I had a direct line manager, and then I had my 2-up. This was in a different organization. And sometimes something came from my 2-up, something came directly from my line manager, but sometimes something came from another head of department. So I needed sometimes to go and clarify that, hey, this person's actually my peer, but they're giving me this work to do. Should I actually be doing this? Because why are they delegating it to me? So instead of me coming across as hey, why are you delegating this to me? You're my peer. You're not my line manager. I would actually go and schedule a meeting with that person and say, hey, this has come across my desk. I just want to clarify with you, how did I get involved in this? Or what's the expectation here? And am I really the right person for this? So it was a much better way of approaching it, because otherwise I would just come across as, well, I'm not going to do this. Why would I want to do that? That's not in my job description, right? Because this is something that I quite often heard, I'm doing something that's not in my job description. Where did you ever read this? Or where did you ever see that, a head of department would have to do that? This should really have been the deputy principal or even the principal. People have bad attitudes about those sort of things, but if you can just go and schedule those intentional conversations to go and clarify without, again, it's that building bridges and not walls. Because if you get defensive and you build these walls around you, people know that, oh yeah, we can't rely on her, or yeah, don't ask her because she's going to flip it. Obviously, we need to protect our boundaries. So if this is something that you absolutely do not have capacity for, maybe the other person also didn't have capacity, and that's why they handballed it to you. Then you need to go and say, what's going on? How did this come across my desk? Am I really the right person for this? I'd just like to understand. Okay. You can also use kingdom language, as I would call it, but it's not necessarily kingdom language. But if I had to refer to it as anything, I would say that. And that is words that point back to your shared values like integrity, unity, excellence, honesty, things like that. Because again, those words build bridges versus using defensive language and using negative language, because again, you're building walls around you. And then the final thing under building bridges and not walls is this idea of integrity and honesty. So don't badmouth higher management to anyone, especially your team. And this can be very tough, I know, because you've got something to say about this decision that higher management made and you're upset about it. I get it. You want to go and share with someone how upset you are, but you have to make sure that you are not gossiping and that you are not bad-mouthing management, because if you are bad-mouthing management to your team, what are they going to start doing? They're going to start bad-mouthing management as well. They're going to start disrespecting the line managers as well, or the CEOs, or whoever they are. So you've got to be very, very mindful what you are role modeling to your team, because what you role model is acceptable in their eyes. And somebody might disagree with you, but again, some people just won't speak up. People are just so scared to speak up. So rather don't do it, rather role model the right thing. So this is an example of a decision that was made by higher management. And I had to first convey this message to my leadership team. So I always first informed my leadership team of any decisions that was made by our line managers, or by the executive team, or by the board of directors. And then we would streamline that information to our team. Because sometimes the team didn't need to know all the information or the background information, but 100% the leadership team did. And I sometimes had to go to my leadership team and say, guys, decision was made by the board of directors. And I can tell you now that it's a tough decision that they had to make. And I don't quite know how I feel about it yet. I'm feeling it. My initial feeling is that I'm feeling a little bit uneasy about it. But hey, this is out of my control. I'm not in that decision position. So let's see how we can implement this. This is the background of the decision that was made. This is my understanding of why I believe it was made. Let's decide together what information we're going to share with the team, and let's make it work. So, did I want to badmouth leadership or the management team or the board of directors? 100%, but I didn't, because I knew that if I started doing that, then my leadership team was going to start doing it as well. However, I will say I'm very proud of one of my leadership team members, because one day she brought it up to my attention. She's like, our leadership meetings have become so negative. I can just not deal with this anymore. And I didn't even pick it up. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even pick it up. Can you please explain? And so she's like, yeah, over the last couple of meetings, we've just been complaining and whinging and blah, blah, blah. And it was so good, because clearly I just got caught up in all of that negativity myself as well. Okay. And so then the last practical tip that I can give you is to create a support system outside of your chain of command, if I can say it like that. So build relationships with mentors, coaches, and peers who can help you process challenges and stay grounded in this information. Obviously, it would be better if you can find a Christian mentor or a Christian coach, or somebody who's a friend that's like a peer that you can actually just share in confidence this frustration that you have, and for them then to give you the advice on how you can deal with that situation. So I had many other people who were in same positions as myself that I knew from other centers or from other schools, who I 100% wouldn't explain the situation like bad mouthing, or gossiping, but I would say, hey, I'm in this position and I'm feeling a little bit stuck on something. I wonder if you can help me. So the other thing is that I did actually have a Christian mentor, and this Christian mentor really meant a lot to me, because I knew that I could go to him in confidence and we would pray together, and then I would go and deal with the situation, and he would be there to help me. So if this is something that you're looking at doing, don't forget that I offer coaching as well. Even if it's outside of the scope of confidence, I can help you in any situation that you are finding challenging with. The other day, I did work with a client, on a listener of the show actually, on a difficult conversation that she was meant to have with someone. And so I helped her and I coached her through that. And it took a couple of weeks for her to have the guts to have this difficult conversation. But in the end, she did actually have the difficult conversation, and it actually went much better than she thought it would go, because she was expecting the worst. She was literally expecting this person to blow their top, and they didn't actually, right? So yeah, definitely come and email me, support@rikawhelan.com, if you are looking at coaching or mentoring or just speaking to someone about a challenging situation that you have at work. And the other thing that you can do, of course, in terms of that support system outside of work is church small groups or Bible study groups, where people can pray for you, where they can stand with you and trust the Lord for a sticky or troublesome situation that you have at work. But the most important thing is that you just have to remember that you're not alone, and that your calling as a leader doesn't depend on the approval of one person or your department or your line manager or your principal or whoever it is. The Bible actually talks about seeking wise counsel. And I know someone personally who did seek wise counsel from many people over the decision that they had to make, but they still went ahead and made the wrong decision. So you can seek all the wise counsel you want, but in the end, it's your decision that you have to make. And unfortunately, if it's the wrong decision, then there's going to be consequences. But again, like, even if it was the wrong thing, don't see it as a failing moment. John Maxwell talks about failing forward, learning from your mistake and moving on. And I want to remind you what Proverbs 15 verse 22 says. Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. So definitely go and seek wise counsel in some of the difficult decisions that you do have to make, or difficult positions that you're in at work. I would 100% recommend that. Then I want to end the episode with some reflective questions for you to think about. Where do you feel unsupported right now? What's one area you can release back to God instead of trying to control it? And who can you invite into your leadership journey for support and accountability? I'll make sure that I put these questions in the show notes for you as well. And just one final reminder before I love and leave you, to go and do the quiz, to go and find out what's the number one thing blocking you from leading like Jesus, just confidently. So go to womanoffaithinleadership.com/quiz, and it's completely free. It'll take you about 2 minutes to do the quiz. And yeah, then it'll tell you exactly what's the number one thing that's blocking your confidence at the moment. And I'm going to give you some biblical encouragement as well, because everything I do on this podcast is extremely important to me, that I base it on biblical principles. I want to pray for you before I end this episode finally, and then we'll see you again next week. Dear Lord, I just want to pray for these amazing women of faith, that you will hold them in your hand and cradle them. Lord, they are in difficult positions, as I said, in middle management, where there's so many things that they can't control, and where they don't have the backing of their line managers or of their two-ups or principals or head of departments or who or whatever it is, Lord. But I just want to pray, Lord, that you'll give them the wisdom, the insight, and the knowledge, Lord, to pray about it, to bring it to you, and to go and seek wise counsel about it, but also to think about this as a opportunity for them to lead faithfully, to come to you with their problems, to clarify what they can control, to build bridges and not walls. And I want to really pray for each and every one of them for a support system outside of the chain of command, where they can seek or build a relationship with a mentor, a coach, or a peer. Send those people on their paths, Lord, because none of us can do this alone. And you also didn't call us to be alone, Lord. You, as human beings, we seek connection, we seek relationships with others. So I really just want to pray, Lord, that you will send the right person to each and every one of these listeners that can help and support them on this journey of leading faithfully when a line manager or a manager isn't supportive of them. Lord, before they decide to leave their workplace to go and seek other work opportunities or other employment because they're so fed up with not being supported or backed by their line manager or their managers, I want to pray, Lord, that that they'll be able to build a bridge and that they'll be able to overcome these challenges that they are facing. But if they ultimately need to leave, Lord, then you will open the doors for them to leave. and then provide them with other employment, Lord. I want to really pray for each and every woman who's listening to this show, Lord. May they be blessed, may they feel loved, and may they know, Lord, that you have called them into this leadership position and that they are worthy of being in that position. And you do not care about qualifications. You do not care about experience. But what you do care about, Lord, is for them to be faithful and for them to trust in you, Lord. And I pray this all in your mighty name. Amen. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Be blessed, be safe, and we'll chat again soon. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you take 30 seconds and leave me a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts? It would mean so much to me to read your feedback. Also, it would really bless me big if you shared this episode with a fellow leader who might benefit from hearing today's message. And remember, put on the armor of God daily and walk by faith and not by sight. I'll meet you back on Monday for another episode.